money making clarity test for your med spa. Have you done this? Have you tried this? Do you even know what I'm talking about? All right. If you don't, imagine this. You asked your team how their work, what they're responsible for, their activity. How does that drive revenue? Sounds like a simple question, right? But oftentimes, what you're going to get is a blank stare back at you, right? Like, did you just ask me how to explain what quantum physics is? Right? That's the kind of deer in the headlights look that you potentially would get if you asked your team, what is it that you do for us that drives revenue? Now, the next thing that happens is they feel awkward, you feel awkward, they feel like they failed you, and you feel like you failed their training at the end of the day. So you may be listening thinking, well, that's not my team. So the other person listening here is, that's not my team. They know exactly how they contribute to revenue. Most people, most business owners and practice managers think that that is the case. But I would challenge you to say that when you pressed your team and you pulled them aside and asked them this question, they probably really couldn't clearly connect their role and how it impacts revenue, how it impacts the bottom line. So today I'm covering a really important topic, which is how to turn really those blank stares, right, into brilliant answers that most importantly is going to impact revenue, grow revenue at the end of the day, okay? And so to get started, to kick this off, I want you to keep this guiding principle in mind, all right? And I wrote it down because I didn't want to mess up this quote here, and it's this. If you can't explain why you believe what you believe, it's not your belief, it's someone else's. Now, I'm not trying to get like crazy philosophical here, but this is absolutely a part of the discussion when you around money clarity and how that impacts your revenue. Because if you're asking your team to do things, to focus on things, to hit KPIs, right, to grow revenue, and they don't understand the why behind it, you are leaving opportunity on the table. So this principle really helps to apply to your team's understanding of how they contribute to revenue at the end of the day. And if they can't articulate, they don't truly understand how they impact revenue at the end of the day, which means they can't prioritize what activities they should be focused on, right? The things that will contribute to revenue at the end of the day. So let's jump into what money making clarity test looks like and how you can do that with your team, with your med spa. And I learned this from a mentor that I spent a lot of time following and studying, and I thought it was such a great insight and impact into my business and to other clients as well. So I want to share this with everyone because I think that it's very, very impactful. Okay, so very first thing you got to do is you got to ask the question, right? So sit down with your team, and you want to do this individually and ask them, okay, how does what you do in this company make us money? And ask very sincerely, right? And listen, if you're one of those people who's like, oh, it's not about making money, right? We're here for a bigger purpose, right? I get it, right? But at the end of the day, if you are not profitable, if you are not making money, there is no business. You cannot provide jobs for your team. You cannot provide service for your clients and your patients, right? So money absolutely has to be a part of the discussion. Generating revenue has to be a part of the discussion. So we first got to ask the question, right, to our individual team members. Now, in the beginning, some common responses are, again, that blank stare, right? Like deer in headlights. You also potentially are going to get vague answers like, well, I help the team, right? And here are some of my faves, right? I answer the phone. I do beautiful lips, right? I get coffee. I'm the fun in the office. And while all of those things contribute to the team, right, and the day of doing work and service and business, right, it's not exactly what we are looking for. So once you ask that question and have some dialogue with them, challenge them to actually work on a written response. Because when you use different forms of communication, right? Verbal, written, auditory, right? It helps us to have deeper meaning and to remember it, right? To make a bigger impression on us. So we want to have each employee write their answers on paper. Now, this is not a group exercise or just a verbal discussion. You want to add in having them write this down because it's going to force them to really get clarity, right? And take individual accountability for truly understanding how they impact revenue for the company at the end of the day. Now, I'd like to share with you some examples of some bad answers to this question, or ones that have opportunity for growth, improvement, optimization, and some good examples as well. So the very here's an example for, let's start with a front desk. Okay, so here is a bad example. I answer the phone and I book appointments for clients, right? Does a front desk do that? Absolutely. But how can we take that answer and go deeper so that this role clearly can identify how she can contribute to growing revenue, right? To really make an impact on revenue at the end of the day. And so how I would coach her or want to see from her for a front desk would sound something like this. By scheduling appointments efficiently and minimizing no-shows, I help maximize revenue every day. Plus, when I create great first impressions, clients are more likely to rebook and refer others. Okay, so that is wildly different, right? That I just I'm a box checker. I answer the phones, I take appointments. I don't care if they come or go or show or book or anything like that, right? Like I'm trying to maximize my team's my calendar utilization. I'm trying to maximize revenue per hour in shows and rebooking rates, right? I'm making sure that I have a great first impression so that they are ready for seeing their provider and committing to that comprehensive treatment plan, that I am a reinforcer to the treatment plan that they just committed to or the treatment that they just received, right? So that they rebook and that they share with others, right? Do you see the difference when your front desk understands and truly takes ownership over their role in generating more revenue for the practice, right? Now let's move on to an injector, okay? So here's an example of a bad answer for that. I perform Botox and filler treatments, right? Do they do that? Yes. Is that deep enough for them to truly understand how they can impact revenue at the end of the day? Heck no, it's not. All right, so let's dig in a little bit deeper. And I get this question often when we're helping recruit for placing injectors in practices, right? Is that they spend a lot of their time as with just the Botox and beautiful lips, right? And then after the fact, they're frustrated that they're not doing comprehensive treatment plans, that they're not cross-promoting other services, right? And at the end of the day, frankly, it was never even talked about, right? That was an expectation until after the fact. So here's an example of how to take a bad answer, like I perform Botox and filler, right? And really transform that. So I deliver high quality treatments and educate clients on all of our complimentary services. They book follow-ups and they purchase add-ons, right? Driving revenue and client loyalty. So you don't have an injector that's just a one-trick pony, right, that doesn't refer over to your estheticians or maybe the wellness side of your practice, so that you don't have an injector that's just, pumping 20 units of Botox and then telling the patient, let us know when you're ready for your touch up, right? But as a true leader in the consultation room, putting together comprehensive combination treatment plans, right? Getting add-on services, making sure that they educate the importance of keeping to a schedule, right? They're not under treating. And at the end of the day, what happens is they grow revenue. They grow the number of visits per year with that patient, right? And that is how you take an injector that's just turning and burning through one and done patients, or allowing the patient to dictate their the treatment plan, to having an injector that not only gets great results for patients, but truly impacting and contributing to the growth and revenue of the practice at the end of the day. All right, so any questions, hit me in the chat, and I try to address those as they come in. Hey, Injector Kimmy, thanks for joining me. Hey, Brooklyn. Hey, Mom, thanks for joining us. Hey, Nuvo. All right, so how do you go about doing this with your team? Let's break that down. Okay, so again, first and foremost, you got to ask the question. So schedule some one-on-one time, whether that you are the business owner or the practice manager. You want to schedule some one-on-one time and start with a discussion around it, right? And then step two is you got to go to writing it down, right? This is really where you want them to spend a lot of time thinking and crafting this response. This is such an important piece to it, of we're just not verbalizing it and checking a box and moving on. You want them to write it down, right? So that's going to help you identify potentially any gaps that may be missing between your understanding and their understanding, right? And having more than just a verbal conversation is going to help you to identify those gaps. Now, the next thing that you're going to do is coaching, right? One-on-one coaching. This is such an underrated thing, where people will set KPIs or goals or give tasks and assignments, right? And then just stop there. They don't continue to invest time in coaching and training so that they actually implement this and take this over to the other side of the mountain to get the true result that is possible and what you are after. So this is really that coaching is gonna help you to connect really the daily task and focus that you want them to be spending their time and their energy on. This is also where you want to bring in measurable business outcomes, right? This is what we love at Diamond: KPIs and benchmarks, and inspecting the data at the end of the day, because data doesn't lie, right? Numbers don't lie. And when you are not in the room, right? When you're not at the front desk all the time, you have to go off of numbers, right? You can't go off of feel. You can't go off of, well, I was in the treatment room once, or when I was at the front desk for an hour, I think that this is what they do. You have to go off of numbers. And so doing this exercise and getting clear on what those activities are, right, that contribute to revenue, and then adding in measurable KPIs and benchmarks to measure that activity, now you are on your way to the money clarity test and actually getting a result in growing revenue at the end of the day, okay? So as you are developing those numbers and that activity that you want them to focus on, make sure that you can really connect the why behind that, and that is really going to help it click for the employee, right? If they don't understand the why of the importance of why you're asking them to do this and how it impacts revenue at the end of the day, it's going to be one of those things where you tell your employee, or you're asking your employee to do something and they either don't do it, right? Or they do it for a couple days or maybe a week, and then they go back to their old habits. But when your employees can connect the why behind it, oftentimes that is the missing link, right? For it to really click for them. And that last link that often is missed is to reinforce the connection when by celebrating wins, right? Celebrating accomplishments, celebrating learning opportunities and growth, right? This is not a perfect thing overnight that you can roll this out and bam, it just magically is going to grow revenue by 50%, right? It's that incremental growth with each individual team member in your med spa, right? That compounds itself, that is going to give you that big result that you are after at the end of the day. And when you take the time to really celebrate those little wins, then all of a sudden those little wins start to show up consistently. And then little wins turn into big wins at the end of the day. And that is how this money clarity test can really take your revenue to the next level when it's applied, right? So now I'd love to share with you, an example of how we shared this with one of our clients here at Diamond Accelerator, how they went and applied it into their business and what the result was at the end of the day. And this is just one of many small examples of success that we've had with our clients here at Diamond by implementing this exact exercise. So, when we first started working with this client, they really wanted to focus on their front desk, right? And it's such an important and often overlooked role and position, but it's the point of first contact that all of your clients have. So it really should be a priority at the end of the day. And when our client went to the front desk to start this conversation, of course, they got a vague answer, right? When we asked the front desk, okay, what is it that you do? We got a very vague answer of, well, I answer the phone and I book appointments, right? Which is better than some of the other answers, frankly, than we get the first time around. So after some coaching and some explanations and really diving in of what we wanted to focus on, we transformed that answer, her activity and what she's focusing on to this, all right? And I made some notes here because I didn't want to miss it, but we challenged her to make her focus more about ensuring that the schedule for her team members are full, that she reduces gaps in schedules for the providers to maximize the treatment room usage, right? That utilization rate, and that each booked appointment will directly increase revenue. And that really clicked for her when she was like, oh, I get that, okay? Then we talked about her customer service, right? And that she's the first point of contact. And so when she has that positive first interaction, that really contributes to higher client retention rate, right? And I can think of many people in my life who stick at a med spa, not because of the injector or the laser technician, but because she became besties with the front desk, right? Not even the person doing the treatment. So your front desk should absolutely not be overlooked. And when we had this transformational conversation with this front desk, the result, guys, was not only did it really empower her to approach her role much differently, that's revenue focused, right? A switch in her mindset, but her rebooking rate went from around 60% to 80%, right? Imagine what that would do for your med spa if you went from a 60% rebooking rate to an 80% rebooking rate, right? And how it also helped to drastically reduce cancellations at the end of the day. So we challenged her to, make sure that each provider's schedules was full, that there weren't gaps in schedules, right? That we maximized the treatment room usage. And what happened was a great increase in rebooking rates, a drastic decrease in cancellation rates. And if your front desk was able to contribute that to your practice, right, reducing cancellation rates and increasing rebooking rates, you best believe that that absolutely impacted revenue at the end of the day. So don't just have this conversation with your injector or your laser technician. You need to have it with every single person on your team, right? Your MAs, your assistants, your virtual assistants, every single person in your company contributes to revenue at the end of the day, right? And if you, at the end of that conversation, cannot clearly define how they contribute to revenue, then I ask you, what do you need them for, right? So, all right. So I hope that you found this training valuable. Any last questions before we wrap up? But what I can tell you guys is that your business will absolutely thrive on your team's ability to understand how they contribute to driving revenue, right? Because if your employees can't explain how their work directly impacts your bottom line, there is absolutely missed opportunities happening in your business. So make sure, guys, make sure you have this very important conversation with every single team member. And at the end of it, they should be able to clearly communicate with you how their activity, how their role contributes to revenue at the end of the day. Okay, so just to recap, next steps here. First thing that you want to do is, again, run the money making clarity test. I got that from Alex Hermosi, and schedule time, right? Whether it's your manager or your the practice owner, right? This is an important thing, guys, at the end of the day. And have them not only just have a conversation and be able to verbalize it, but write it down. Because after everything is said and done, when they have that written down and it's in front of them, and maybe add it to their roles and responsibilities, add it to where their, quarterly or monthly or annual goals are, right? When it's front and center, that's where their focus and their energy is going to go, right? And you can't just have this conversation once. You need to continue to review and coach them, support them, and ultimately hold them accountable, right? So that you can address any potential gaps in their understanding, right? And your expectations. Because that regular reinforcement is really, really important. So this should be a part of performance reviews. This should be a part of individual and team meetings, right? So for example, in a team meeting, celebrating when part of their revenue generating activity contributed to the growth, right? You want to celebrate them, and that positive reinforcement is only going to encourage and motivate them to do more. All right. So I hope that you found this training helpful. If you did, make sure that you share it with your team, right? Or at least watch the replay again and then take it and apply it to your business. Don't be someone that listens and be like, yeah, that was a good idea, and then doesn't implement at the end of the day. You took the time to show up here, right? And to listen. Now take the time to really implement and apply this to your business. And that's the only way that you are going to continue to grow and expand, right? Is to getting a little bit better every single day. So thanks for joining me here live. I'll go ahead and stay on for those in Zoom, but I'll log off on the social channels. But be sure to catch us every single week, same time at same place on Wednesdays, 2:30 Central Time. Find us on Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Thanks so much, guys.